right, guys, welcome back. We are doing our Europe recap into predictions for the week and Classic Europe. That's all we got to say about that. Classic Europe with Veloce, the team that everyone on the subreddit said was coming in 8th. Even myself had them in 8th with 1 win on the season. Well, they're 2-0. Like we scripted it out, of course. Let's see if they pull a mouse sports or will they actually carry it on and do well in the season. But let's start. Veloce versus Complexity. Oh boy, we talked about this in the NA one where Rogue looked terrible. Complexity looked worse in this series than Rogue looked in North America, in my opinion. It was bad because Veloce wasn't putting on a lot of pressure, and it was just like, we're just going to tee up the ball for you. Here you go. Like, we're on defense, and we have a half volley clear. How about we don't clear it, and we just pop it up right in the middle for Veloce to score? Or why don't we just smack it against our sidewall where we have no support on defense and just let Veloce score some free goals? Literally, Veloce didn't score by themselves until Game 4. Like, they didn't make a play happen until Game 4, yet they were still dominating this series. So it was just rough by Complexity. And it wasn't just one player. All 3 of them had a very easy clear or save, and they just beamed it and just gave it right over to Veloce. So one person I liked, Casio, he got the player of the week. I felt like in Game 4, he started to facilitate some of that offense, which was good to see from Veloce. But I think, honestly, this series, more so than anything, Complexity just lost it. Like, Complexity was terrible. Not something that you want to see out of them. And now you have to start thinking of, like, what is this roster like right now? Like, what is this morale like? Because we talked about Complexity was looking fantastic throughout the offseason. 2 top 8s at DreamHack. One of them was a 3rd place finish. And then we had the Flakes controversy with the Flakes wanting to replace Greasy. Magnus said no, they were going to replace Flakes. Then it didn't happen, and they all came back together. Well, since then, they didn't have a good DreamHack in the last one in Montreal, and they obviously looked terrible here in Week 1. So you worry right now if you're a Complexity fan, because I think going into the season, before all that happened throughout the offseason, you would have said, like, hey, they have a good chance at fighting for a top 4 spot because of their DreamHack performances, but not now. Not now. It's not great. It's not great. And honestly, the one goal that Complexity scored too was just a gimme, I think, from Veloce as well. So it wasn't fantastic. Moving on. We'll talk about Complexity a little bit more in a bit. Barcelona versus Rec. Barcelona didn't get a ton of offense, which is obviously very troubling going forward. But the one thing I did like was I was worried that without Alpha, that Bluey is just going to fall into, like, completely, like, not doing anything on the offensive side. He was probably the only one really trying to make offensive plays happen, and I enjoyed that from Bluey. He was trying to get some solo plays going. Like, Devo was doing a good job in the midfield to, like, move the ball up, but Bluey, he actually got some offense going compared to last season where they relied heavily on Alpha. Bluey actually got some things going early on. Obviously, Rec, they missed a lot of shots in those first 2 games, which, once again, like, I think in Week 1, I don't mind if you have a lot of offensive pressure and you miss shots, because I think that's the first thing that goes when you have some nerves or you're trying to get back into it is shot accuracy. Your field positioning and your ball control, that usually doesn't fall apart because that's just how you play the game. So Rec, they were still dominating on those things. I'm actually going to bring up their stats here real quick. So that was good from them. Like, they had 9 shots per game across, I think they only had 1 series, right? Yeah, so only 1 series. So that's not terrible. Barcelona, they also averaged 9 shots per game in that series. So they did tie by the end of it, but I did like at least Bluey getting involved on the offensive side. It's like they showed more life than you wanted or than I thought I would see from Barcelona coming in, because I have them, I believe, in relegation or at least in the promotion tournament. But Ronicky as well, not a great first series from him. I'm going to look at his stats real quick if we bring those up, because I don't think he really did a whole lot. Yeah, Ronicky had 1 goal, 2 assists in 5 games. He got a decent amount of shots, which is good and bad. His shooting percentage is near the bottom. was at 4.35%. The lowest of anyone that scored a goal. Him and Magnus tied at the bottom, and Remco had 0% because he didn't get any goals in. So Ronicky, not a great first showing. He had, in Game 5, in a 1-0 game, he had 7 shots, no goals, obviously, and he just completely whiffs on the defensive side. That's not how you want to open up on a brand new team. So Ronicky will have to try and turn it around. It was not pretty from him coming into this first series. But Rec, they pull out the win, the reverse sweep. They close out their series. Not the best showing that you want to see from them, but they got the job done, right? They didn't have a ton of offense, but they got the job done. So we'll see them going forward. I think Rec TSM is going to be really interesting going into week 2. But you expect Rec to pick it up, right? Because, they had a great offseason. You expect them to pick it up. Veloce versus Dig. So Veloce being complexity, it's like, okay. Like, I think there's a world where you see that. I don't think a lot of people had them beating Dig, though, because Dig looked great throughout the offseason. But they come out on top. And honestly, the first person you have to blame is Yukio, because 2 wide open nets in 2 of the games. I can't remember exactly if they were game-defining misses or mistakes, because I can't remember exactly what games it was in. I'll have to go back and look. But 2 wide open nets he misses. And then the Game 5. Oh, boy. That Game 5 play was miserable. Like, if you give that ball to anyone else, I think Yukio had full boost, or at least had enough boost to do some work. He has the ball with, 5 seconds left, 10 seconds left, like in the midfield, no one around him, and he just does absolutely nothing with it. Sure, you could blame Von Panda and Astral like a bit on the defensive side, but it all starts with Yukio, who has the ball by himself, can make a play happen. Von Panda is moving up the field with him because it's such a golden opportunity, and then he just beans it. He just flies up, hits the ball back down, but the opposite way, falls over the ball, just gives it up completely to Freaky. Violent Panda has to turn around immediately and try and get back. And sure, he could maybe turn on that a little bit more and try and challenge Freaky. And Astro could probably try and defend that goal line. But it shouldn't have happened anyway. It was just a miserable play by Yukio. So I expect to see him doing a bit better going forward, but it was rough. Like, I thought Von Panda was doing a good job trying to facilitate the offense, getting a lot of passing plays coming out of the corner. And Astral had his moments here or there. It wasn't as astrally as we expected that we have seen in past tournaments, but very close series. But you got to give it up to Veloce for staying in there, man, and just some close wins. They just got the overtime win, another 1-goal win, and another 1-goal win down there. Like, it was a close series, but for Veloce, and especially Flame, right? He comes into the season where the only time he's been in the RLCS was what, season 3? I think it was season 3, maybe season 4. He goes 0-7. So didn't even get a win. Then he goes into 3 promotion tournaments and doesn't win any of them. But he comes out and starts out 2-0. Fantastic for him. It's a great story for him, but this was a series that Dig should have won. Like, I think Veloce got away with a little bit once again. Like, I think Complexity lost the series earlier. Honestly, I think Dig lost the series too. But that just goes to show that Veloce is a team that you can't just have a bad series against. They can still play pretty well. But I think overall, I think a lot of people would still have Veloce probably not into the World Championship. Even though that they're starting 2-0 here. But we'll see. Maybe we're all wrong, and obviously that they play Vitality this week. And if they start 3-0, who knows? Who knows where they go from here? But it was a little bit rough. And I think in general for Europe, it was a bit rough. Vitality versus Complexity. This was just a Vitality special of just controlling the play. Complexity, fantastic defense throughout. They actually played really well compared to when they played Veloce. But they were just getting destroyed. Like, shots per game, how many did Vitality have? 13 shots per game. You're not going to win a lot of series if you're giving up 13 shots per game. I don't care how good of a defense you have. And once again, I will say this a million times. This is not what I want to see. You don't play defense to win many series for Rocket League standards, right? Like, in the World Championship, if you're playing defense only, every series turns into a 50-50, right? And that's at the very best. Vitality just absolutely dominated this, though. 13 shots per game. You're not beating Vitality that way because their offense is just too good. They'll eventually put it past you. It was close, but this is not what you want to see from Complexity, and I think Vitality was just fine. They obviously want to score more goals than they did, but I think they'll be fine. It's not too bad. TSM Mouse. This is a weird one. Very weird. I felt like TSM early on was like, hey, we know that we can play defense, but we can't play offense, so let's just send all three up for everything. And that's what they did in games 1 and 2, and it was just wide open nets for Mouse to put home goals. Like, it just kept happening. Then they finally got Alpha involved. Like, he didn't score his first goal until that 0-second goal in game 3. Like, obviously, Alpha was setting up Metsinoris, I believe, earlier on in games 1 and 2. But then it was just feed Alpha the ball. But I actually really liked what I saw from Remco. He's getting involved on the offensive side of the ball, which is not something we've seen a lot from him lately. And that's a good sign. The thing I still worry about with TSM is just look at their goals. They rarely score over 2 goals per game. They didn't here. They only scored 2 max in games 3, 4, and 5. They got the wins with their defense, but it's just not consistent enough to me to play like this forever and get a lot of wins. But they pull it off here versus Mouse. Mouse has got to be killing themselves because that 0-second goal to tie the game, like they could have had the sweep easily, and they just kind of whiffed at the end. Like Cooks here had a big whiff there. I think it was speed as well. It was just not great. That's not what you want to see from Mouse. And Mouse, like they desperately wanted to start the season 1-0 just to get that momentum going, to kind of get rid of that Mouse curse from RLCS league play where they're just, always a bad team. And I don't think people think they're a bad team this time. I still have them as a top 4 team, but you got to get the wins, right? And they kind of just beaned it here. So TSM gets a win. Alpha played absolutely amazing, and that's what we expect, and that's why TSM picked them up. But still, look at this offense. Not the greatest offense so far from TSM. Mouse had good offense the first 2 games and then got completely shut down. So, again, you have to credit TSM's defense. I just don't think that's going to win you a ton of series that way. But we'll see. Going forward into my predictions for week 2. So, we'll move on. We'll go into our predictions. And our first series, Mouse versus Barcelona. So, I'm still on the offseason of, I think Mouse is a pretty good team. And I worry for Barcelona. Like, Barcelona, they showed some life, but once again, they didn't have any offense either, like TSM. And it was a couple Bluey solo plays. Besides that, they didn't really do anything. Not a lot of passes on the offensive side at all. And I worry that is going to be a huge problem going forward throughout the season. So I'm going to give this one to Mouse. I think they're going to come out and sweep them. I think Mouse have a decent shot here to try and right the wrongs versus TSM and get this sweep that they probably should have had versus TSM. So I'm going to go Mouse 3-0 there. Rec versus TSM. I'm also going to go through a 3-0 here. I think Rec will find their offense, will find their accuracy. They obviously shot pretty poor in week 1. And, oh, man, it was poor by a lot of people. Nadams with the sub. Thank you, buddy. 21 months. Getting the dab. Hit the dab. Thank you, Nadams. Appreciate it, man. But if you look at shooting percentage across the board, normally if you're below 20%, it's like one of the worst ever. Well, TSM was at 20.51%, and they were in 3rd place. Dignitas at 19%, Vitality at 13%, Reciprocity 13%, Complexity 9%, Barcelona 9%. It was rough. It was a rough first week for Europe, but I think it starts turning around because there's no way we're going to have our 3rd place team be TSM at 20%. There's no way. That's not going to happen. So I think Rec will find the back of the net, and they'll be just fine. Vitality versus Veloce. So this will be the match of the week because it's the 2 undefeated teams. But again, I think Veloce kind of got gifted 2 series. Maybe the series versus Complexity wasn't so much of a gift. Like, they did play at least okay. But I don't know. I don't have Veloce doing too much for the rest of the season. I do think they'll pick up a 3rd win, at least, and maybe a 4th, but I don't think they're beating Vitality or Rec. probably Barcelona and Mouse are like, I would give them a decent chance versus Barcelona. And Mouse, it depends how Vel's looking at that point, but it's possible. But I don't see them doing much. I'm going to open up with 3 sweeps. I think Vitality will show that they're world class once again and get the win. Dig versus Complexity. The hard thing is we just haven't seen any offense from Complexity yet. I assume they'll find some here, and I'll give it a 3-1 for Dig, but I think Dig's a better team. I think they're very similar, where it's like Astral versus Flakes. I think Astral has looked better than Flakes in solo plays. Flakes obviously looked great on the defensive side, so maybe he'll get the slight edge here compared to Astral, who sometimes is a little bit shaky on the defensive side. But the problem is, Complexity, that's all they're doing is playing defense, and I can't see them getting a win yet until I see some offense out of them. TSM versus Barcelona. This one is huge because, say TSM wins this, that puts Barcelona in the basement. That puts them in a very big hole to try and get out when they still haven't played Vitality. They still haven't played Dig. This one's tough to call because, again, Barcelona, I didn't see a lot of offense out of them either. TSM, I think TSM win this. I think they are the better team. Just because I think Alpha is obviously Alpha. Oops, sorry. The reason why TSM is better than Barcelona is because they took Alpha from Barcelona and put him on TSM, right? If Alpha's on Barcelona, I have Barcelona winning this. It comes down to who has Alpha, and I'll give it to TSM. I think it could be a close series because it could get a little messy, but, Alpha is Alpha. So we're going to give it to him. He's a top 5 player in Europe, if not the world. And, yeah, Alpha's going to show why he's really good at Rocket League. And I love that the first time we see Splash is on a 0-second goal, and then we just see Splash like crazy last week versus Mouse towards the end there, where he scored, I think, every single goal after that, right? I could be wrong. Yeah, I think he scored 6 goals back-to-back. Maybe one of those wasn't him. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I think Alpha continues his tear, and there we go. So we'd have 3-0 Mouse, 3-0 Rec, 3-0 Vitality, 3-1 Dig, and then a 3-2 for TSM, which would mean, if we're looking at the standings, we'll go up here a little bit. Veloce would fall down to 2-1. Vitality would be 2-0. Rec would be 2-0. TSM would be 2-1, I believe, right? Because I think they play earlier. Yeah, they play earlier. So 2-1 TSM. Mouse would go to 1-1. Do they have another series? No, just one. 1-1 for Mouse. Dignitas would move to 1-1 as well. And then finally, Barcelona would be 0-3. Yeah, 0-3 for Barcelona. Put them in the basement. And Complexity would also be 0-3. So it would have 2 teams in the basement. Dig and Mouse getting their wins. And then it's like, oh boy. At that point, if you're both 0-3 and then the next best team is 1-1, that could get scary for those 2 teams down there. So, once again, because of that Veloce start, it's even more important now to pick up your wins early, because that was one of those teams that you thought was like, all right, we know one of our bottom 2. Let's see who the other one is. Well, now that's not the case anymore. And if they get one more win, they're almost locked for a top 6. So, going to be interesting going forward. Very, very important games, and we'll see if these teams pick it up. But I thought Europe was pretty messy in week 1. And hopefully we see some better shooting in week 2. That's what we hope for. Remco got to step it up after the season if they don't make a good run. I should have stayed. I think Remco is that player probably most on the chopping block. If they have a bad season, I wouldn't be surprised to see Remco gone from TSM. The only other option is if Alpha decides to leave. That's how Remco stays, is if Alpha leaves again. Who knows? Maybe he joins a Dignitas, or he joins a Reciprocity, because if they have a bad season, maybe they try and make moves. Who knows? But I could see people want Alpha, so that's the only way Remco stays. But if Alpha stays, I would say, yeah, Remco would probably be the one to go. And I think on Barcelona, they would probably swap out Ronicky again if he has some more bad weeks, just because I think Bluey and Devo are kind of tied together. But who knows? Maybe they change that up too and look at someone else. But but that's going to be it for our European side. Twitch chat, say goodbye. I'll get your last points in. But Europe right now is wide open. That's one of the good things, because Veloce went 2-0. So you look at it, for the bottom 2, it's very scary. But for the top 2, golden opportunity right now where, like, even if you had a bad week one, like a team like Dignitas or a team like Mouse, it's like there's a chance for a top 2 spot right now. There's still a chance, like obviously Rekka got their win, so you expect them to be top 2. But they didn't look that good either, so there's still some opportunities there for top 2. Or even top 4, because once again, we're doing a page playoff. So top 4 is still fantastic. You get 2 chances at making the World Championship instead of 1. So we'll see. The one nice thing, obviously, for the 7th and 8th seeds, which I didn't talk about a lot here, was we did expand to 10 teams, obviously, for next season. So they at least will have an easier promotion tournament where they'll face the 3rd and 4th best from the rival series. But honestly, the past 2 years, or the past 2 seasons, 3rd and 4th from rival series was probably taken down maybe one, if not both, of the RLCS teams. So you got to be careful there. It's still not a gimme. It's just a little bit easier. But that's going to do it for our Europe recap and predictions. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys had fun. I think next week I am going to try and do something a little bit different and have actually some gameplay up. But I got to figure that out. So it'll be a little bit more interesting to watch. But yeah, that's it. That's it for me. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.